Hello and welcome to another Kitchen Sink University. This is in the economics series, and I'd like to talk to you about some debt management strategies. So stick around. All right, so let's get into it. Debt management. This is something that affects a lot of people. It can be hard to dig your way out of. I'm doing the same myself right now, and I'm finally on the track to get out of it in a few years. And I've been dealing with it for many more years than that. So that right there tells you you've got to prepare yourself for a long haul. It all depends on your income, the amount of debt you have, the interest rates that you have on the debt. All these factors will play into how long it exactly takes. So I can't tell you if it'll take longer or shorter than the amount of time I've put into it. But little background, I had cancer twice in a row, racked up $250,000 in medical debt, and didn't have the greatest job at the time. I was on disability for a good chunk of time. So I was living uh, what I call sub paycheck to paycheck. Um, I was having to live off of a credit card to buy food in many cases, and even sometimes shifting things around to be able to pay a bill with a credit card. Used to get these little checks that you could put on your credit card. This is all bad stuff, but I mean, if this is the way that you need to keep yourself fed, um, it's kind of hard to call it a bad thing. It just is what it is, and I totally get it. So I'm not here to judge you or tell you that you're doing a crappy job because it's what you have to do. And so I wanted to tailor this class toward the sub paycheck to paycheck crowd and let you know what sort of things I had to do to move money around and make ends meet every month. I'd like to start with some, a couple of goals and a few different levels to those goals, so that you have something achievable, but you also have like a step higher that you're going to try. And I know you're trying to get to a goal in the first place, but you can try a little harder to get to this other one. It'll reduce the amount of time that you're in debt. So that's what I'm going for here. There's a baseline goal and an optimal goal. So that first goal is to stop or at least reduce the increases in your balances, in your credit balances, loans and stuff. The aim is to spend no more than the minimum payment minus any interest accrued in that month. So if your minimum payment is $50 and there's, $25 in interest every month, try not to add more than $25 worth of debits to that particular account. I know that's easier said than done, but um, if there's a way you can tailor it, if you have 3 credit cards and you're able to do that on just one card, and then if you need to spend a little extra, try to apply the same principles to the next card, and so on and so forth. Um, Now that's your baseline goal. The the optimal goal here is to look at your cash expenses, things that you are paying cash for, whether it's your groceries, your rent, utilities, anything like that, and see what you can reduce there. Whether you start buying thriftier brands of food, or try to turn the lights off more often. Keep a good eye on your budget, see what you're spending normally, and then whatever you're able to reduce from that, convert that into extra credit card payments. So that's your optimal goal, is to get a little thriftier with your cash, and then whatever you've saved in that thriftiness, then turn around and apply to credit cards, rather than being tempted to be like, oh, look at this, I've got a little extra cash, I'm just gonna go party or buy some nice clothes or something. Every now and then, sure, you gotta splurge on something. It's therapeutic to do something nice for yourself every now and then. I totally understand. But like I said, optimal goal. The second main goal here is to maximize social benefits. Now, what I mean there is, as far as like a baseline, I want to make you aware of stuff like 211. It's instead of 911 or whatever, or 811 if you're digging. 211 is if you've dug yourself into a financial hole and you need some help. They have a website. The 211 is a phone number as well, and you can call to get assistance with a variety of things. They help with veterans benefits. They help food and utilities and all kinds of stuff. Speaking of food and utilities, food banks, some of them have, some income restrictions. So you need to go in and ask what it takes to qualify for receiving food from a food bank. That will vary. So maybe some don't ask for anything at all, and they just hope that you're on the honor system, that you actually do need it. I had to survive off of food banks when I was putting myself through college and racking up more debt in the process. So it's definitely a great tool to fall back on. Food stamps as well, whatever they call that benefit in your state. It's still colloquially referred to as food stamps. And one thing that people may not be aware of as a way to get some help is call around to your local churches, because some of them do offer either a full month or a partial payment of your utility bill. Usually they limit it to like once a year, I think. If they participate in such a thing, they basically pool some church donations, and whomever goes to ask for help will get a portion of that pool. That's probably why they aren't really advertising it, because they don't you don't have a great deal of cash. But if you're a church goer, maybe just ask your pastor the next time you're in church if that's a program that they have, and keep it in mind for a dire emergency. It's not something that you want to go out and use right away. It's best to kind of wait until you've got the final notice from the utility company and they're about to shut your power off or something. And okay, yeah, reach out for help then. And then if you're able to, and again, this is all baseline goal stuff, reallocate any saved budget amount to pay down your highest interest card faster. And your optimal goal here is to be able to get on food stamps. That's a great way to get a little extra every month. That make sure you're keeping your health up. And speaking of health, any government assistance you can get for medical, if you fall within the income category, definitely take advantage of that and keep your health up, because Medical bills are drastically, outrageously costly, and that's the last thing you need is more debt, more bills. So uh, those are the two main goals, each of them with a baseline and an optimal level. I'd like to go into a few tips, just general things to keep in the back of your mind. If your credit card or loan allows for paying on the principal only, try to make that minimum payment, which is required. And if you apply it to principal only, many times they don't consider that part of the minimum payment. So be aware of that. Make your minimum payment, and then whatever else you're able to spend, tell them to apply it to the principal. That way, when they calculate the interest, they're not throwing interest on top of interest. See what I'm saying? So that's one little trick to use. It's not a huge difference, but over time it can rack up. If you have multiple credit cards, chances are they've got slightly different APRs. So if there's a high percentage rate on one of your cards, try to use that one the least. And if you have a fair chunk open on another credit card with a lower interest rate, see if you can do a balance transfer. Now, the caveat here is you got to make sure you're transferring enough to make it worth your while, because there are fees. Sometimes it's a percentage of the amount, sometimes it's a flat dollar amount. You got to look into that, make sure you're not just racking up even more debt in the end. It takes a little math, a little projecting into the future, but it can be worth your while. It's actually what's really sped up my process of getting out of debt. Just most recently is this technique. One other good tip: credit unions have much better perks than banks, so you might be able to get lower interest credit cards and lines of credit, loans. And then one last tip: really reevaluate your employment situation and your living arrangement. If there is a way that you can cut back on the size of your living space, you might be able to reduce your rent payments, your utility costs. All of that stuff can go right toward paying that debt off. And when it comes to changing jobs, I know that's not everyone's favorite thing to do, but here's the thing to remember. When you go for a new job, be aggressive about trying to get that higher pay as you're going in. The worst they can say is no, and you just settle for whatever they're able to give you. Just hopefully it's at least what you're making, if not more. And maybe they've got better benefits. Maybe you didn't have benefits at all at the last job. These are all things that can help you out. And if you get that higher pay to begin with, each raise being usually a percentage of what you've been making will be higher than what it would have been if you started at a lower salary. So bear that in mind. There's probably lots of videos and blogs and tips on how to assert yourself gently and politely, and to make a good case for yourself why you deserve making more money. Finally, I'd like to go over just a general rule in debt management and savings in general. Get rid of your debt first. And by first, I mean, don't even have that emergency nest egg. Don't even have retirement savings, because any little piddly amount you're making from interest on whatever you've got in savings, it's being totally wiped out. When you're looking at your net wealth, it's being totally wiped out by the interest you're accruing on debt. I guarantee that. And when it comes to like a 401k or something, Those are pretty volatile markets. Even if you're doing a conservative one, the amount of interest that you're accruing may not equal the amount that you're paying out in interest on credit cards and loans. And even if it's equal, well, what's the point? Because now you have a wash. But if you're able to pay off those debts quicker over your lifetime, the amount of interest that you're paying out will be drastically reduced sooner, so that you have way more money in the end to start saving as acutely and quickly as possible. I'm feeling this myself in my late 30s, and I've just started a 401k. Well, I'm still trying to get out of debt, but I'm close enough to the end of the debt where I'm starting to funnel a little bit into savings and a little bit into the 401k. But when you're just starting out, having the 401k is basically pointless, because if you keep drowning in debt, at some point you're probably going to end up having to tap into the 401k, pay the penalties and the taxes and all that stuff. Don't bother with any of that. So those are all the tips I've had, just from personal experience, from things I've heard from friends that have kind of guided me toward the light. And you didn't have to pay anything for this advice. So that's been another Kitchen Sink University Economics series. I'm KSU Rochford. Please like and share the video, subscribe, and don't forget to check out our website. It's ksmvidcast.com, and our other channel, Kitchen Sink Microscopy. All right, have a good day.